today it's going to be kind of similar to last videos. We're going to be chatting a bit about magic cards. This time, though, I am going to be sharing my rare binder. Now, it's going to be very quaint compared to many longtime Magic players, but I thought it could be fun to go over some cards that are in here, assuming the camera angle works well enough for it. And if not, then it'll just turn into a tapping on Magic boxes and stuff video, I guess. But I have a lot of cards in here that I want to make commander decks out of eventually, so I thought it could be fun to talk about my plans for those. Show off some cards, maybe some of the more expensive cards I have in here too. And to kind of just see how the vibe goes from there. So I have mine all sorted in one binder. I know a lot of people who have way more cards will sort it by color in the binder, as in they'll have a binder for white, a binder for red, etc. But I don't have enough cards for that yet, because I just got back into the hobby not too long ago. So instead, I have mine sorted by multicolor in the front, then, you know, like white, blue, black, red, green, I think. Whatever the standard is when you look on Magic's website for, like, card image galleries and stuff, I use that format. Then I got lands and artifacts in the back. So, first up we have multicolored cards. And let's see if I can actually get the camera to focus in on that a bit better. So, it's probably not going to show the names clear enough, but at the top there, I got Ball, Bane, and Merkle, the dead gods from Baldur's Gate. I got all three of those. And of them, I plan on making a Ball deck, I think. He is... I'll take one of the binders so you can get a look at him. Maybe it'll focus on him. Maybe not. Hard to say. He's 5 mana. You can see kind of there, red, green, black, which I believe is Jund. I'm not as familiar with the 3-color combo names, though. I know all the 2-color ones because I played the crap out of Ravnica, but I'm not familiar with the 3-color ones. But his ability is he's a, one of each, and then 2 colorless legendary creature, God. He's a 5 mana 4/4. As long as your life total is less than or equal to half your starting life total, Ball, Lord of Murder, has indestructible. Now, that might seem like a nothing burger of an ability, just like, if I happen to lose a lot of life, then he's indestructible, but I'm probably going to try to make that part of the deck's themes. So we got that for one ability, but the second ability too, which is the one that I'm really wanting to look into. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on target creature and goad it. So I want to make a deck that gets a lot of value from sacrificing creatures. I believe they call it an aristocrat's deck. I don't fully know why, but I think that's the term for it. I'm guessing there was some old card called aristocratic something, or aristocrats, that started that trend of cards, because I know that's where Stacks came from and Mill came from. It was like cards that had that in the name that did a thing. But yeah, I've got a lot of cards that generate value when creatures die, and create value when you sacrifice creatures, and like make your opponent sacrifice creatures when you sacrifice creatures. I kind of want to make a deck themed around that. There's a few cards that I'm thinking about using for commanders for that one. The other one I also have in here, even though he's not like a legendary that's worth as much, because he's just uncommon. I also have a Mahadi, Emporium Master. You can't really see very clear, the camera refuses to focus, but he is a 3 mana, red, black, and 1 colorless. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. I'm also heavily debating having him be the commander for that deck. The upside to him is he comes down way earlier, and he generates ramp, so it would be more flexible play style, but it wouldn't have like as much of a build around, or as defined of a build around. It's just make creatures die and get mana for it, so it's not as interesting to me. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, but that's also a possibility. And if not, he's for sure going in the Ball deck. So otherwise, we I pulled it pretty. So I've just bought a few of the like set boosters from sets that I think seemed interesting. So one of them I bought was one of the newer Phyrexian wave of sets. I forget the name of it. I think it was All Will Be One, but because I saw I could pull Shieldred in it, and fun little story. Shieldred was the very first mythic I ever pulled when I first got back into Magic. The 7-mana one that reanimates creatures on your upkeep and destroys creatures on opponents' upkeeps. So I was hoping to pull her just because I have a bit of sentimental value attached to Shieldred as a character, I guess. So, and also she's really strong too. But so I didn't get her, but I did get this, which is worth a pretty good amount. Atraxa Grand Unifier. Okay, show it clearly there. You can see it's a 4-color commander. It has everything but red. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, 7/7. When Atraxa Grand Unifier enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may pick one card of that type from among the revealed cards and put it into your hand. And you put the rest of them on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, if you have a very diverse deck pool where you use artifacts, creatures, enchantments, stuff like that, then you can get a lot. You can, potentially draw like 5 or 6 cards. But I know she's worth like 30-ish, I think. But I haven't really had anything that springs to mind for an obvious deck I want to build around her. But she's a pretty good one. I also, funnily enough, so I pulled this from my Duskmourn pack. I guess they've just included stuff like that where you can pull things from other sets in like unrelated packs. So it's a Tiamat, 5-color dragon commander who, when she enters, you can search your library for 5 dragons with different, and then like put them into your hand. She's worth, I think, like $12 or something. She could be a fun commander to build around. I do want to make a dragon deck at some point because they're one of my favorites of the tribals. And then there's also Miriam, Sentinel Worm. Come on. So finicky. There you go. He's red, green, blue. 6 mana, 6/6, flying ward 2. Whenever another non-token dragon enters a battlefield under your control, create a token that's a copy of it, except if it's legendary, the token isn't legendary. So, that one could be fun for just slamming down some big-ass dragons that have powerful effects and going ham. Aside from those cards, though, the front page doesn't have too much I'll want to talk about. Maybe this one, actually. It's one of those, like, altered art dams. I haven't even looked up how much it's worth, but I bought the like TV box thing for Duskmourn because I thought the concept would have been pretty fun to build, or was pretty cool for the set. So I bought a bunch of stuff before opening the packs. Not to say that wasn't interesting or wasn't like cool, but to me it felt like Duskmourn had this really awesome idea of like horror movie card set vibes, and they really only went halfway. Like they kind of, not to say they half-assed it, but it kind of feels like it was half-assed a little bit in that there weren't a lot of like cards that felt like iconic slasher or horror movie stuff. There was like some reference stuffs like Unstoppable Slasher, which is in here that I'll probably show later, but like I don't know, it just wasn't horrific enough because almost all of the people that weren't monsters that were in there just see like the art depicted them, aside from a few instances, like we're just having a good time, or they seemed hopeful, or they seemed badass, and it kind of defeats the whole vibe to me when you have this the concept of like there being an entire plane that's this shifting mansion full of monstrosities should be really cool, but I didn't feel like they did enough with it personally. But I'm hoping they'll revisit it later and do more with it. Valgavoth seemed pretty interesting as well. So, otherwise, I got, I guess, Astarion on the back page of that, but there's not a whole lot I have interesting Here, he's a 6 mana. He's white, 1 black, 4 colorless, for 4/4 Death Touch lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1 food. Target opponent loses life equal to the amount of life they lost this turn, or friends, you gain life equal to the amount of life you gain this turn. So you basically just double dip in your choice of category each round, which is decent, but not something that like is super inspiring for me to want to build around. He also is like one of the only companions in Baldur's Gate that doesn't have the background, which for me seems like some of the most fun ways to go around it. Because like I want to build a Karlach deck. I don't have her yet, but you know, because she seems like she has some fun combos with backgrounds. So otherwise, next page, there we have a commander I want to make a pseudo group hug / beatdown deck. Partially, to be completely honest, because the name is so freaking funny to me. But we have. I'm gonna wait to see if it focuses before I say the name. Glunch, the Bestower. He's 1 green, 1 white, 1 colorless for a 0/5 flyer. At the beginning of your end step, choose a player. They put 2 and 1 counters on a creature they control. Choose a second player to draw a card, and a third player creates 2 treasures. So, the idea I have for the deck is it'll have some minor group hug elements to hopefully create an ally or 2 early game. And then equip or play stuff that lets him attack with his butt because he's a 0/5, and then have him be like a Voltron type commander. For example, a card that I don't think I have ever seen in a deck that is in the Baldur's Gate set is called Stone Skin, and it's a white enchantment with like flash that you enchant a creature and you give it +0/+10. So I could very easily use that to just one shot, or like if I hit somebody once before, and you give him a 1 counter later, swing at somebody, and if they aren't able to block it, I can just use that to do like 17 damage to them, commander damage, and kill them instantly almost. So that's kind of the idea behind that. Deck is some group hug, some curses that'll like also make people want to target other people. Basically, the goal of the deck is to have people ignore me early by not being as assuming with my commander, and then beat some ass. So yeah, that's the plan for that. Otherwise, another commander that seems like that could be fun is another 3-cost commander, Baba Lysaga, Night Witch. Come on, focus. She's a 3 mana, 1 black, 1 green, 1 colorless, so she's Golgari, and the other guy, Glunch, is a Selesnya color combo. Her ability is you tap her and sacrifice up to 3 permanents. If there are 3 or more card types among the sacrificed permanents were sacrificed, then each opponent loses 3 life. You gain 3 life and you draw 3 cards. So the idea would be, you get cards that have ideally 3 separate card types. So you could have like a artifact, creature, equipment, maybe. I don't know exactly what would be, or if there even are very many cards that are 3 types at once. But that would be like the idea, is you stack as many of those as you can. So you don't have to sacrifice 3 but even if you do, you're still cycling the 3 cards by drawing 3 cards. So, that would be, I think, a fun commander to make a deck around as well. That's it for that page, though. For the most part now, there aren't a lot of, like, heavy hitters for the rest of the multicolored pages. There's only, like, maybe 1 or 2 more that I'm thinking about making. So, funnily enough, in that Ixtalan booster box I bought, I pulled blue Loyal Raptor, but I did not pull Owen Grady. So, but funnily enough, one of my buddies a while ago pulled an Owen, but no blue. So I'm hoping we can get together and one of us, whoever's more likely to make a deck around it, could trade for the other one, which I could see myself doing it. So I'll probably see about getting it from him, but Otherwise, we got a classic, absolute classic of a commander, Yargle and Multani. He's a 6-mana Golgari commander who is just an 18/6. Oh, I need to trim my nails. Oh well. Anyways, he's just an 18. Well, it's just that one nail that's going long. The rest of them are fine, but so he's an 18/6, and that's his only abilities. He's got a big face, but because of that, if you swing at somebody, they have to block it every time because you play any pump spell, and that's commander lethal right there. So make him unblockable or something, and you're doing people dirty. So it could be fun for that. You'd get targeted for sure, but it's fun to be the public enemy of the table sometimes. For instance, she's not in the binders, but I have Arabella. That as soon as I pulled her, when I was looking through when I was opening my Duskmourn booster, I knew I wanted to make a deck around her because she seemed really fun and also a creepy evil doll, which I love horror. Yeah, as you can probably tell from my content on my channel. So it was like the perfect commander for me to try to build around. I've gotten it upgraded a bit since its initial conception too. So last time I played it, it got going pretty quick, and it got to be public enemy number 1 because I would swing and hit the table for like 14 damage AoE and heal up from it. So like I would heal 14, and so I was sitting up at like 70 health, and just beating them down. It took like 4 board wipes from other players before me to finally kind of fizzle out a bit and run out of steam because my commander was just too expensive and stuff. But yeah, it was pretty satisfying just being okay, we gotta come together and deal with this guy because he's kind of gonna kill us all if we don't. That was kind of fun, and that was also like a tipping point for me and how I wanted to view commander. Because before, my playstyle mentality for a lot of games is like, I won't mess with you if you don't mess with me type of thing. But as soon as one player breaks that and fucks with me, then I will spend the rest of the game devoted to making sure they regret it type of thing. And in some games it's good and fun, but in Commander, I find that if no one is being the proactive aggressor, the games will just take too long because nothing happens. So even if you're just hitting somebody for 2 damage, that's progressing the game towards an end. Like, every bit of damage counts. So whenever possible now, I swing, even if it means I make an enemy, just so that the game progresses consistently. So, and that was the commander that kind of taught me that. It's kind of like how, this is going to be a weird, unrelated story, but when I first started playing Dark Souls games, like, with the first Dark Souls, my build was get the heaviest armor I could have, get enough strength to one-handed, two-handed weapon, and then one-handed, two-handed shield, and then just out-tank and outlast every enemy. And it made it a methodical grind, and I did that for Dark Souls 1, and I was doing that for Dark Souls 2 when I played it for a bit. Demon Souls, I did similar stuff, but though it wasn't as effective in that game. But then, eventually, I played Bloodborne. And that game taught me how to have more fun with the Dark Souls series by just being aggressive as hell, basically wearing no armor so that I can be as fast as possible, having the most efficient dodges as possible, and just going in. Usually what I do now, like my first playthrough for like any Soulsborne game I play going forward now, is I will do a strength build, get the biggest weapon I can have, two-handed, and just freaking annihilate people while I'm in the nude, essentially. And it's just so much more fun that way. So that's kind of a similar vein with how Arabella taught me how to play Commander, a bit more fun. So the other person I think would be very fun to make a deck around is, and I think the last multicolored Commander I have to show for this is John Irenicus, the Shattered One. He's a 4-mana Dimir Commander. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of target creature you control. You put 2/1 counters on it and tap it, and it's goaded for the rest of the game. And it also gains this creature can't be sacrificed, so they can't just get rid of it for value engines, which is nice. And whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, you draw a card. So you basically you can do it two ways. You can give your allies creatures that have huge drawbacks to just screw them over, but that's not how I would do it because that would make them want to deal with me right away. How I would probably do it is I would have the deck be around smorky creatures, big, like strong effect creatures, and then I would basically gift those out, build up a mana base that I could then board wipe when it's just me and one other opponent after they've killed each other off, and then have just a good old freaking sparring session where we duke it out. So I'd be basically playing Dimir in the least Dimir way possible, which is fisticuffs, but I think that'd be fun. Otherwise, there aren't any other monocolored or multicolored commanders that I've got in here that I'd want to show you guys, so we'll go on to white. And fittingly, I have this card to show you guys. Gandalf the White. Oh, let me do that instead. He is 5 mana. Can't really see because he's not focusing on him. 2 white, 3 colorless, 4/5 with flash. You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaves the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time. So, for example, if you have the 1 mana Soul Warden that's like, when a creature enters, you gain a life, that would make you gain 2 life. So, he's not going to be a commander, but he's probably going to go in a deck of mine at some point. I just don't know what yet. The other one to show. Oh, this looks weird. The Lae'zel I pulled is like a foil or something, but it looks really strange. I will be amazed if it focuses in on it. Yeah, no, she's a 4 mana with, if you would put one or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many +1 of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. And she's got choose a background, so I could see her being very fun for that. On to mono blue. We got Malcolm. He could be a potential for a mono blue commander. I haven't figured out who I'm going to do for that, because I do want to make one for every color combo. And I do already have a mono white commander, which is why I'm not going to make Gandalf one. The one I have is the Wandering Rescuer, but Malcolm, come on. Well, he is a 2 mana, which is very good already. 2/1 with flash and flying, which is very solid. And whenever Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel, deals combat damage to a player, put a Chorus counter on it. Draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 4 more Chorus counters on Malcolm, you may cast the discarded card without paying its mana cost. So that could be a very fun one where you just find ways to just keep swinging with him or proliferate the counters you got on him. Right. To a player, I'm assuming when it says put a Chorus counter on it, it refers to Malcolm, not the player, but I guess either way you could proliferate counters on players, so, try to get that to like 4 as quickly as possible and start swinging at people and getting free spells. We got Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy. He could also be pretty fun to make a deck around, honestly. I'm surprised I haven't seen people talk about him more in general when they're talking about Baldur's Gate. He seems kind of insane to me. He is... Okay, let's try this out. 3 mana. 1/3, which I like. He's got a big butt, so, he's not going to die as easily. 3 mana, 1/3 blue, with whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, you may cast up to 1 target card of the other type from your graveyard. And then if you do cast a spell this way, you exile it instead. And he's got choose a background. But what's nice about that, there's a lot of really strong sorceries that you can put in the deck, and then play them on opponents' turns by essentially paying 1 extra mana by using, cantrip type spells, like pay 1 mana to scry 1, draw a card or something, So that seems like it could be very fun. And with the background, you can have a lot of fun options for that. The last blue card I would like to show is Jace, the Perfected Mind. Pulled that in the will be one. He's a 4-mana planeswalker, but one of them has Phyrexian mana, which means you can pay the mana or 2 life, and he's completed, which means if you pay the life instead of mana, he enters with less counters on him. But +1 until end of turn, up to 1 target creature gets -1, -3, -0, sorry, which is fine. Nothing too crazy though. It could be good for dealing with a commander though that like has double strike, or a creature that needs to deal just 1 point of damage to trigger something, you know. -2, target player mills 3 cards. Then if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards, otherwise you draw 1 card. And then he has a -X for target player mills 3 times X cards, and he comes in with 5 loyalty by default. Or if you play with the life instead, he enters with 3 loyalty. So if you really needed to, you could have him immediately sack himself to mill somebody 15. But yeah. On to mono black cards. These are some of the ones I'm most excited to share with you guys. Although a lot of them are missing because I was working on a black deck and mono black deck in hindsight. So actually, yeah, I'm missing a lot of these. But so I really want to make a mono black deck, but I haven't figured out what direction I want to take it. I've got a few themes. One of them is vampires, because I want to make a vampire tribal deck at some point, and vampires are one of my favorite tribes. I also want to make a demon tribal deck, because I've pulled a lot of good demon support cards, but so those are the 2 main contenders. I'm not sure what I'll go with yet, but oh yeah, actually I'm missing most of my cards in here, so I won't have as much to show you guys, but that's okay. So we got Goryo's Vengeance. This is another one of those like altered art, or whatever they call them, that I pulled from it. It is a 2-mana instant. Return target legendary creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. What's nice about it is because it says it's legendary, I could, if my commander dies, have it go into the graveyard if its tax is really high, and then play that on it to try to avoid the tax slightly. And then, I mean, it'll get exiled, but then you can just put it back in the command zone, you know. So that can be a way to try to like close the game out by not having to spend a lot of mana if it's late game. Otherwise, for whatever reason, I pulled like 4 of this dude, and he only would work in a mono black deck, really. But you'll see why pretty soon. Doomsday Excruciator. I won't really focus, but he requires 6 black mana symbols. So yeah, if you're not playing mono black, good luck playing him. 6/6 with flying. When he enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. So he puts the game on an immediate 6-turn timer, basically, which is kind of cool. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. What I would do if I put him in the deck, though, is put cards that shuffle my graveyard into my library, like Elixir of Immortality, and then drop him. And then I would still have a deck to use, and my opponents wouldn't, type of thing. And they would have to, you know, try to end the game real quickly then, which could be kind of fun. Otherwise, shoot, yeah, I took out all my good the cards I would have wanted to show in hindsight, and they're not somewhere I can grab right now very quickly. So here's another one though that I can show. This is a very good Phyrexian card that I was gonna originally buy because it was so good, but for like specific deck types, but I ended up pulling it, and so I didn't need to. He is called Drivnod, Carnage Dominus. He is a 5-mana legendary creature, Phyrexian Horror. If a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. And you can pay 2 Phyrexian mana, so you can pay 4 life, 2 life, or 2, you know, and a black mana or 2 black mana to exile 3 creature cards from your graveyard and put an indestructible counter on him. So that's kind of nice. You can wait to do that until somebody tries to kill him or does a board wipe to actually save him. So that's pretty cool. So otherwise, yeah, that's it for mono black. I guess I kind of hyped that up only for it to not have as many cards to show, but next up we got mono red, and I love this design for a card. I initially bought it, like, I was going to make a mono red deck with this as the commander, but it didn't end up fitting the theme very well. So if I'm probably going to make a second mono red deck and try to really lean into the theme of this card. Dio-Chan, Artful Beauty. And I really hope that the camera will focus on the art because it would be fitting. But no, of course, why would it do it? So it is a 4-mana mono red commander that is a 1/1 tap. Destroy target creature of your choice, then destroy target creature of an opponent's choice. Activate this ability only on your turn before attackers are declared. So the idea behind it would be a politics-themed mono red deck. I would give her untargetable so that they can't choose her, you know. Though even still, I would still use it if I don't have her untargetable and just be like, I mean, if you really want to do that to try to screw me over, you can do that, but it's not going to probably be as valuable as hitting somebody's, you know, like, big green beat stick or something, you know. So I think it'd be fun to make a deck around politics in mono red. And I could maybe even go with a human theme, you know, for something too. But, speaking of humans, we got another Baldur's Gate one that would be fun to make a 2-color deck around. Will, the Blade of Frontiers. It's a 2-mana. If you would roll one or more dice instead, you roll that many dice plus 1 and ignore the lowest roll. When you roll one or more dice, you put a 1/1 counter on Will, and he's got to choose a background. But he's only a 1/1, so he starts out pretty weak. But as he gets more money from his Eldritch Sugar Mommy, then, you know, he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So that could be fun. Otherwise, I have a lot of mono red cards. I bought this because I was potentially going to make it the commander, but I didn't even end up making the cut because I thought in hindsight it might just make me an enemy of the table too much. Fumiko. And it doesn't stop them from beating my ass. So, you know, Fumiko. The low blood. So she's a 4-mana, 3/2 with Bushido X, where X is the number of attacking creatures, and Bushido is just whenever this creature blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +X until end of turn. So she's a good blocker. So if somebody swings at me 10 things and she blocks, she gets +10/+10, which is kind of nice. But and then she has the ability, creatures your opponents control, attack each combat if able. But because it's not goad, they could be like, well, I hate that. I'm going to kill you for that, you know. So I didn't put it in because of that. Otherwise, yeah, that's probably it for the mono reds. And now we're on to some green. I haven't really made anything with green yet, so I think the mono green commander I want to build around is going to be this absolute Chad of a card. Thrun, Breaker of Silence. Come on, break the mold and let the camera focus on you, please. Whatever. He's a 5-mana, so, you know, it means in green, basically 2 mana. 5/5. This spell can't be countered. Trample. He can't be the target of non-green spells your opponents control or abilities from non-green sources your opponents control. And as long as it's your turn, he has indestructible. So he seems like a really fun, I'm gonna beat some skulls in with this guy, with the commander, you know, Voltron style. This card seems absolutely busted in graveyard-focused decks, so, you know, Golgari types of decks. It is called Head Shredder. We'll see if it'll focus. Probably won't, though. It is a 4-mana, 5/5 artifact vehicle with crew 1, so it's pretty easy to crew if you want to. Whenever Head Shredder attacks, you may mill 2 cards. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from the library, put them into the battlefield tapped. So whenever you mill a land, you just get it tapped. That seems like absurd amounts of ramp you can do very easily in a lot of decks if you get that out. Fun deck. Skull Spore Nexus. This could be a fun card to put into the mono green deck. Of course, it's not going to focus. Whatever. I'm just not going to bother worrying about that. The Skull Spore next. This is a... I'm just going to stop trying to show the cards off, honestly, because it's just not working. It is an 8 mana legendary artifact. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So, you know, probably 2 mana. Whenever one or more non-token creatures you control die, create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with base power and toughness equal to that creature's power actually equal to the total power of those creatures. So if you get board wiped with this, you're going to get a big Mama Jama. And then it has play 2 and tap it, double target creature's power until end of turn. So that seems like it'd be fun. Next card we have to show. Well, I guess I'm not going to show because it's not working, but Fangorn, Tree Shepherd. He is a 7 mana. 3 green, 4 colorless. 4/10, which is a very interesting stat line. He's got a big butt. So he's probably going to go in my Glunk, or Glunch, or whatever, deck. Tree folk you control have Vigilance. Whenever one or more tree folks you control attack, add twice that much green mana, and you don't lose unspent green mana as steps and phases end. So, you know, just good for ramping and stuff. And he's got a big butt, like I said, so that'll be nice. Raised by Giants is a 6 mana background. Creature or commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to the other types. Honestly, could see myself making a will deck with that as the guy, you know, but I'm not sure what. It just seems like it'd be a lot of fun. I'm not sure what I could go into though. Bedrock Tortoise is a 4 mana 0/6 turtle. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control have hexproof. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So I want to get as many cards with those types of effects as possible and put it into the deck for Glunch. We got Kona, Rescue Beastie, Survival. At the beginning of your second main phase, if Kona, Rescue Beastie is tapped, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So just cheat something out. He's a 4 mana, 4/3, so not the most survivable, but not terrible. So it could be fun. Delighted Halfling. It's a 1 mana Halfling. You can tap to add colorless or tap to add 1 mana of any color. Use that mana only to cast a legendary spell. Yeah, legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered. So that's one of the best mana dorks you can probably get in Commander, honestly. Then we have some lands. None of them I think are too crazy or worth too much. We got, the Shire. It's a legendary land. Enters tapped unless you control a legendary creature. You can tap for green mana, or pay 2 and tap an untapped creature token you control, and tap the land to create a food token. Otherwise, I got just a couple, like, enters battlefield, tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands that tap for multiple colors, like green, red, and stuff like that. Otherwise, I don't think there's any lands that are super worth showing off, I think. There's the Fist of Suns that I showed off last time, actually, that I got, which is the Thanos Gauntlet. You can 3 mana, you can pay 1 of each color mana rather than pay the mana cost for spells you cast. Roaming Throne, I found out, is actually like a $30 card. It is a 4 mana, 4/4 artifact creature golem. Ward 2, as it enters, you choose a creature type. It is the chosen type in addition to its other types. And if a triggered ability of another creature you control of the chosen type triggers, it triggers an additional time. Very strong card. I got Mjolnir, Stormhammer. When Mjolnir enters the battlefield, attach it to target legendary creature you control, and it is a 4 mana equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and put a stun counter. Then Mjolnir deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of tapped creatures that opponent controls. I'm thinking about making a Hilda deck, which is a Azorius, white blue commander that whenever you tap an opponent's untapped creature, you can pay 1 mana and get benefits. So it seems like it'd be very good in a deck like that. And that will do it for this video. Those are the main cards I wanted to show off. Like I said, the collection isn't too crazy. It's very humble at the moment. But hopefully over time I can add to it and maybe show off some cool cards later on. I am expecting to get one last booster set soonish, so in fact, I'll probably make a video opening the whole thing once that arrives, and try to get a better camera setup for that specifically. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to show off too. So, back when I started playing, one of the cards I was most excited to or one of my favorite cards as well, was pretty close to when I started playing, was Olivia Boldarin. And like I said, I love vampires, so I bought her Most Wanted Outlaws deck. It's the first precon I've ever gotten, but so I'm probably gonna make some minor upgrades to it. But to start off with, I'm just gonna leave it as is and see what cards don't seem super relevant, and then maybe upgrade a few cards. But yeah, I wanted to. So I got that. I'm also getting a Warhammer precon because those seem pretty dope. So I'm getting the Imperium of Man one. So whatever forces of whatever the throne or something. I don't know what it's called, but it's the quote unquote good guys. You know, the human faction. So yeah, that'll do it then for this video. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you've enjoyed, and until next time.